Recently, 15 federal agencies and dozens of companies signed onto a program that touches nuclear power, semiconductors, quantum computing, and biotech all at once. Now, the number attached to it is $5 billion. And unless you follow energy policy for a living, you've probably never heard of it. It's called the Genesis mission. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 different stocks poised to benefit from it with a full review of which ones are actually worth your time based on the underlying data. Now, 4 of them are already building the actual infrastructure this program runs on, and 3 more are lesser known names flying under the radar. And the last one you'll never see coming. And here's a hint, it's not an AI company at all, but I'll help you connect the dots, so stay tuned. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Jacob Wade. I'm a financial coach that helps high income earners retire early. And if you like timely financial news videos just like this one, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button below. It lets me know to keep making more videos just like this one. Now, the Genesis mission started as an executive order back in November of 2025. And the idea was simple. Take the Department of Energy's 17 national labs, places like Argonne, Oak Ridge, and Los Alamos, and point serious AI compute at some of the hardest problems in American science. Nuclear fission and fusion, critical materials, semiconductors, quantum information science, advanced manufacturing. And for most of the year, it looked like a modest $293 million research grant program, which is sure worth a mention in a policy newsletter, but not the kind of thing that ends up on a stock screener. Then, in the past few weeks, that story changed overnight. And for investors that are paying attention, this is where it gets very interesting. And by the way, I got to break in here and say that this is precisely the type of story that our editor-in-chief Steve Reitmeister discusses during his free weekly live trainings. So if you want to learn more about market-moving events like this one ahead of the pack, I strongly suggest just go over to WallStreetZen.com/live and you can sign up for the next session. All right, let's unpack some stats that'll actually help you understand the magnitude of the Genesis mission. At the first ever Genesis Mission Summit, Michael Kratsios, who runs the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, unveiled more than $5 billion in new federal commitments. That is 15 plus agencies, not just the Department of Energy anymore. NASA is in. The National Science Foundation is in. And even the National Institutes of Health committed $1.2 billion of its own money over the next 2 years under something they're calling the Biogenesis mission for AI-driven biomedical research. And separately, the DOE confirmed more than $800 million in committed support from private partners. So this is money and resources companies are putting in themselves to be a part of this. Now let's look at how fast it's scaled, and this part is the important part because I'm going to lead this right into the stocks that could benefit from this, which I'm getting to, so stay with me for a second. But that original $293 million grant program drew more than 5,000 applications. The Department of Energy could only fund 278 of those. That is a funding rate under 6%, more competitive than admissions to most top research universities. Those 278 winning projects now span all 50 states and 342 different institutions. So this is real money being spent right now with a line of applicants stretching around the block. And that raises the question every investor watching this video should be asking, who is on the other end of those checks? Now, a handful of public companies have already been named. Some of them will actually surprise you, and one of them is quietly ranked in the top 4% of our entire quant ratings database. All right, let's get into it. Who's actually building this stuff? Well, the Genesis mission needed real computers to run on. So 2 flagship supercomputer clusters are being built right now, and we know exactly who's building them. At Argonne National Laboratory outside Chicago, there's a cluster called Equinox, and it's being built by Nvidia and Oracle. Roughly 10,000 of Nvidia's Blackwell chips targeting full operation sometime this year. So if you're asking who actually gets paid when the government spends $5 billion on AI, this is your answer. It's Nvidia and Oracle building one supercomputer. And a few more well-known names, I'll mention in a second here, that are building another one. So let's do a quick scan of the data for the company stocks behind this first build-out. Now, Oracle, ticker symbol RCL, sits at a C rating. It's a hold recommendation. That grade is reached at the end of a 115-factor review, which evaluates things like value, momentum, sentiment, and more. And in addition to the overall grade, you can see specific areas of strength and weakness via 7 underlying component grades. Now, Oracle has a genuinely flat profile, with every single component grade landing at a C. Our editor-in-chief actually likes to joke that C's are short for see ya later, not exactly something you would be in a rush to buy. Now, Wall Street analysts see it a little bit differently, with 27 different analysts covering Oracle landing on a consensus of a strong buy recommendation and an average price target of over 100% above the current levels as of the time that I'm recording this. But when the sell side and the fundamentals split this dramatically, the data has historically been a safer call than the analysts. Now, Nvidia, ticker symbol NVDA, on the other hand, comes into this video with a Zen rating of a B, which is a buy recommendation. Its component grades are generally pretty strong, with a standout area being financials, which it is graded an A. However, it is worth noting it receives a D for safety, which is not unusual for the AI and semiconductor space, but it's a risk worth respecting. And Wall Street analysts actually back the case here, with 25 analysts covering Nvidia settling on a consensus strong buy recommendation and an average price target of roughly 60% higher than current levels as of the time of this recording. So that was the first build out that's happening. Now the second one is Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee, where there is a comparable cluster called Lux. That's one being built by Advanced Micro Devices, or AMD, and Hewlett Packard Enterprises, known as HP. It's running AMD's latest Instinct chips alongside HPE's server hardware, also targeting this year launch. So let's run the numbers for these two companies. Now, AMD, ticker symbol AMD, shocker, is rated at a B. It's a buy recommendation. And if you look at the component grades, it has solid grades across growth, momentum, and sentiment. Though a little ironic for a company building AI infrastructure, its weakest component is actually our AI component, which is graded at a D. Now, I should mention that this grade isn't actually related to how much AI a company does or how well it does it. It's a grade born of our own advanced AI algorithm, which detects subtle patterns that could lead to outperformance. Now, Wall Street analysts are firmly on the bullish side here, with the 34 analysts that are covering AMD landing on a consensus strong buy recommendation and price targets stretching as high as over 40% from current levels. But Hewlett Packard, HPE, is the standout of the 4 stocks that I've mentioned so far that are related to these buildouts. It's rated at an A, a strong buy recommendation with top A grades in both growth and in sentiment. And speaking of sentiment, Wall Street analysts agree that this stock has some room to run, with the 16 analysts covering HPE settling on a consensus buy recommendation and some 1-year price targets going higher than 60% over today's levels. And by the way, if you're curious, the Zen ratings and component grades are updated daily. So if you want the most up-to-date information, visit WallStreetZen.com and just enter any ticker symbol that you're interested in. All right, so Nvidia, Oracle, AMD, HP are the clearest names because they have actual named infrastructure contracts because of this. But the full consortium is actually much bigger than the 24 companies that signed on back in December. It now includes companies like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, IBM, Intel, Dell, Palantir, CoreWeave, and dozens of smaller specialists in quantum computing and critical materials. So here's the point that I'm trying to make here. This is not a one-day pop story where a single earnings call where Genesis Mission shows up and the stock jumps 10%. It's not going to be like that. This is a multi-year federal infrastructure build-out. Think of this the same way you would track a highway bill or a defense program. This is going to take time, but phase 2 awards, the bigger ones that are coming out at $6 million to $15 million each, are expected in the coming months. So that's going to be your next checkpoint. So the question isn't which of these stocks pops tomorrow, it's which of the names actually show real quality underneath the news of this. Now, let's take a look at a few of the less obvious ones that are highly ranked in our system. And by the way, if you do like stock talk like this, again, I'm going to remind you of Wall Street Zen's no-cost live training sessions. You can join our editor-in-chief, Steve Reitmeister, on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. He doesn't just talk about what he's buying, but how he's actually finding these stocks so you can do the same in the days and weeks ahead. He also shares his trade of the week, combining the best of Zen ratings with his 40-plus years of investing experience. So if you're liking this type of content, I strongly recommend just pause the video for a second and register for free at WallStreetZen.com/podcast. live. There's also a link in the description, or if you have a phone on you, you can just scan the QR code on the screen right here and sign right up. CoreWeave is named as a consortium partner here, and on paper, that sounds like exactly the kind of smaller name that benefits most. But in our system, CoreWeave, ticker symbol CRV, currently carries an F grade, a strong sell recommendation. It sits in the bottom 1% of all stocks based on its fundamentals. Its financials grade is an F in the bottom 3%. The sentiment grade is an F in the bottom 2%. A government contract does not cancel out those ratings. Now, the news is real, but it doesn't override what the underlying numbers say about the stock today. And here is what makes this even more of a caution flag. Wall Street analysts are actually bullish on CoreWeave, with one of the price targets actually suggesting the stock could see greater than 250% upside from current levels as of the time of this recording. When even the sell side optimism can't move our system off a strong sell, that tells you the fundamental data is actually pretty weak and pretty loud here. All right, next up, we're going to talk about Amentum, ticker symbol AMTM. It's a much smaller government services company that was recently selected to build an AI data center and energy project at the Savannah River site for the National Nuclear Security Administration. That's the kind of contract that moves the needle for a company that size, a lot more than it does for a large company like Nvidia. Now, the Zen rating sits at a C, which is a hold recommendation. It's in the top 25% of stocks, but the clear standout here is value in the top 4% of all stocks we rate. So the valuation is actually attractive, but the overall grade is suggesting some caution. And there could be a better A or B pick out there potentially compared to this C rating. Now, Wall Street analysts land a hair more optimistic than our system does, with these 7 analysts covering Amentum settling on a consensus buy recommendation, with an average price target implying nearly a 40% upside from current levels. So again, just keep an eye on it. Now, here's the one that nobody expects. John Wiley & Sons, ticker symbol WLY. Yes, we're talking about the academic publisher of books. Now, Wiley joined recently to bring its research database into the mix, because a lot of scientific AI work needs high quality training data, and Wiley has decades of it. So in our system, Wiley actually carries a Zen rating of an A, a strong buy recommendation, and it ranks in the top 4% of all stocks. Now, its standout component is financials. It's in the top 2%. And on top of that, Wiley is the #1 ranked stock in its entire industry group. Now, there aren't currently any price target forecasts on Wiley from Wall Street analysts, but the 2 analysts who do follow the stock forecast the company to generate a high return on equity of around 25% over the next 2 years, a sign of efficient capital use that lines up cleanly with the financials grade that our system is already flagging. Now listen, I know this sounds crazy. Nobody watches AI headlines and lands on an academic publishing sector, but that's what makes this pick so interesting. Okay, so there you have it, a huge project that brings together some of the biggest trends moving stocks today all in one place. Are you following any of the stocks that I mentioned here? Or maybe I missed one? I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. And if you liked this type of video, then make sure you check out my video on another recent huge funding catalyst flying under the radar, the government's big bet on drones. You can check out the video right here on your screen right now.